What's going on, guys? Welcome to another edition of the TGC Anniversary Series here in 2026. This is yet another video here on TGC Radio, the music channel, and today I'm going to be talking about Taking Back Sunday. And they're a band I love, a band I've been into for quite some time, and I've recently completely delved into their entire discography specifically for this video, listening back to albums I've already listened to in full before, listening to so many of those songs that I know, songs that I didn't know, etc., etc. You get the idea. Today, I'm going to be taking my newer ranking system and ranking every single album from this band. But that's it, so let's get into it. But very quickly, we'll run down the tiers just in case you're new and you don't know how I do things. So, my first tier, my top tier, is Platinum, and things that go in Platinum tier are things that make you feel something. But then Gold is next, and that is for excellent albums. Silver is for great albums. Bronze tier is for good albums. Aluminum is for okay. And then Copper is for actual bad albums, or some might say for trash albums. But all of that being said now, let's jump in from the start with 2002's Tell All Your Friends. And I said right away, one thing I can say about this album, and really the band in general, is the writing is just great. Pretty stellar across the board through their different eras. The writing is great. And I said Tell All Your Friends really is an emo masterclass in that department, and I can definitely hear elements of this album in bands that came later. But we start off with the opening track, You Know How I Do, and I said this is Taking Back Sunday. It's not their best by any means, but it does have everything great about the band. It's got great playing from everyone, that early Taking Back Sunday style, and the constant back and forth from Adam and John. It's a good but not great opener. Then we have Bike Scene, where I said this carries the momentum from the opener, and again has everything that I love about this band. Everything is done better than in the opener, at least to me. I also love how the final chorus and outro is much faster coming out of the bridge. I like that. Then we have the one that everybody knows, and that is Cute Without the E, cut from the team. And I just said simply, what do you want me to say about this? This is the song from this band. This is also the best song on the album so far. It was a great song in 2002, and it's still a great song today. I really love the instrumental as a whole in this song. Everyone is killing it. Also, the bridge into the outro is absolutely next level emo. This is a quintessential emo song, and if you don't like it, argue with the wall. Then we have There's No I in Team, and also, what do I need to say about There's No I in Team? The second half of the most famous emo beef ever. The response to 70 times 7. They sample that song in the bridge as well, and then also respond to it at the same time, and it's another song I love a lot. I think I prefer this to Cute Without the E, but that was definitely the better single, and makes more sense for it to be like the song from the band. And say what you will about the actual legitimacy of the beef between really John and Jesse, but whatever. That's a different conversation, different video. Regardless, it resulted in 2 banging songs. The next song is Great Romances of the 20th Century, and I had to say, I actually had not heard this song before. But I know people love this song, and I actually really like the lead part, starting of the chorus, especially juxtaposed to John's more harsh singing. And I said, this is a great song. Followed up by Ghost Man on third, I said this song starts off softer and quieter until the chorus, and it works. Though the chorus doesn't get super crazy or anything, just needed to note that. Also the high note on the word revisionist deserves to be shouted out, I think. And it's another good song, and the album has just been stellar so far, with not a dull moment to speak of. And the outro really picks things up with some screaming too. Then Timberwolves at New Jersey, I said I feel like I've heard the opening vocal melody before, but I just can't put my finger on it. The verses are very percussive, and I like that. And what's also really cool is that everything feels very cohesive, and every song feels unique so far, and I actually like Timberwolves a lot as well. Then we have The Blue Channel, which I recently saw a post on Reddit, actually, about this band and ranking the best song, worst song, and most underrated on every album. And for some reason, they said this one was the worst. And I disagree. But regardless, I said this one opens up with some nice piano, then kicks into a faster, punkier sound. I really like this one. But I've also never seen anyone talk about this song. And the last few songs also have shown me just how hard some of these songs would be to sing live. Which is something people need to remember about this whole album. Is just, yeah, a lot of these songs would and should be very difficult to sing live. Which kind of just makes me wish that the band would play more of their other stuff live more often. But whatever. Besides the point. I did want to shout out some of the crazy high notes in The Blue Channel. I like the song. You're So Last Summer, our penultimate song. I already know this one because who doesn't? The second biggest song from the album, and it's great. In fact, recently, I've been into the song more than Q without the E, and I also really like the bridge to the outro. And we finish off with Head Club. And the final song is another banger that closes the album in a great way. I don't know if this will be anyone's favorite, but it's a great closer to me. And then we move on to... Or I guess I should probably rank the album. That's the whole point of the damn video. I flirted with where to put this one. And ultimately, I decided on, and this one's probably going to ruffle some feathers, I know, I'm sorry, but I decided on this album should be silver tier for great albums. There's songs on here that I think are absolutely phenomenal tracks, but as a whole album, I think it's just great. So, silver tier. But of course, we move on to the first of the Fred era of the band, Where You Wanna Be from 2004. And I said, if I remember right, this was my first full length from the band. And as the album progressed on the re-listen, I said it started to feel with the re-listen that the band was really starting to find a new identity with, at the time, new members. Obviously. There are a lot of really good standout tracks on Tell All Your Friends, but I was just enjoying Where You Wanna Be more. I said I really like with the differences between this and Tell All Your Friends that there are still things from that album here on Where You Wanna Be, and I especially love that every song has the back and forth vocals, which is admittedly one of my favorite things about this band and just music in general. I love that. But we have our first song, Set Phasers to Stun. Immediately starting this song again, for the first time in a few years by the way. This feels like Taking Back Sunday, but something different at the same time, which is exactly how I would describe the Fred era of the band. A great opener to a fantastic album. This song is more polished than anything on Tell All Your Friends. It's not as rough around the edges, but works so well. In fact, you could argue that this band sounds better a little more polished. Bonus Mosh Part 2, the song really just makes me think if Fred was in the band the whole time. It kind of feels like if Fred was on Tell All Your Friends, to me anyway, and I think it's great for that. Then we have one of my favorite songs from the band, period, A Decade, Under the Influence. This is generally one of my favorite songs from the band, I just said that. I adore this song. This is a killer song, and I would definitely argue it's one of the band's best. Everything I love about this era of the band is shown off so well in this song. Then we have This Photograph is Proof, I Know You Know, which may have actually been the first song I ever heard from the band. Like, a long time ago when I was growing up and my family was still in Georgia, I know my eldest sister, I know one of her friends gave her this burn CD with a bunch of emo, particularly emo, but some pop punk stuff on there too. And I know she said Cute Without the E was on there, but I don't remember hearing that one on it. And I'm pretty sure she said This Photograph is Proof was also on there. So that may actually be the first one I ever heard. I don't know for sure. But regardless, This Photograph is Proof, I Know You Know. This song is basically Fred leading the song on vocals. Adam starts the verses, but eventually Fred takes over going into the chorus. And it's another song I love a lot. I don't like it quite as much as Decade, but I still love this song. Then we have The Union, and I Immediately had to note I really like Matt and Mark's parts here. They're killing it in the rhythm section on the song. There's a scream at the 1 minute mark that feels really kind of Davey Havoc from AFI to me, and I think The Union is a bangin' song. I've listened to this song before, but didn't really remember it before now, and this might be my second favorite as of the re-listen. Let's continue. New American Classic. This one starts off softer with an acoustic guitar, and it feels very intimate. And then they added in a violin, which I thought sounded really good, and they clearly want the listener to feel something with this song. And it's working on me. I'd actually really want to hear Adam and Fred play this now. Like, I'm a sucker for a good ballad, always have been, and this is basically that. This is really well done, and it's also neat because I don't think anyone would have seen this band doing something like this based only on Tell All Your Friends. I love New American Classic. I Am Fred Astaire. I really like the instrumental on this song, and the lead part and the verses work so well with the rhythm section, I think. 180 by Summer, I don't have much to add, it's just one I like a lot. Also one I've heard the name of for a very long time, even if it took me even longer to listen to it. Yeah. Number 5 with a Bullet. The synth in the background at the start really makes me think of Motion City, which is a very good thing in my book. I feel like a broken record because I just want to keep praising everyone on every song. So I won't. But then we have Little Devotional, and I said I really like the beginning and think it's a killer deep cut. And then Slow Dance on the Inside is a very fitting closing track. And ultimately, I like Where You Want to Be a lot more than Tell All Your Friends, even though I like that album a lot. And as you can imagine, Where You Want to Be ends up as my first gold tier album of the video, and is a step up from Tell Your Friends in basically every way. But then we go on to the finale of the Fred era. That's 2006's Louder Now. What's it feel like to be a ghost? What an opening track. One of my favorite songs from the band, and easily one of their best. This is also their best opener to this point, and maybe ever. It's everything I love about this band, and it's just more of what I loved from Where You Want to Be. This is a natural progression from the previous album. That opening riff to the back and forth and everything in between, What's It Feel Like to Be a Ghost is such a killer song. Liar, It Takes One to Know One. The opener cleanly transitions into this one, and this is another fantastic song, another one of the band's best. Then, of course, we come to the band's biggest song, actually their biggest song, bigger than Q without the E, Make Damn Sure. And it's a hit for a reason. Despite everything, it's probably still my favorite song. Hell, if I made a list of my all-time favorite songs, period, this song would not only be on it, but it would probably be high up too. From the opening lead part from Fred and the way Eddie's rhythm part complements it, to the great notes that Fred's playing high up on his guitar, which are a pain to play live and sing at the same time. He's talked about that before. This is just quintessential Taking Back Sunday, and if I could only play one song for someone not into the band, it'd be this. Also, I had to shout out the vocals coming out of the bridge, and then how cool it is when Adam and Fred switch lines in the outro. Something I've always loved. So far, this album is better than Where You Want to Be to me. Will it continue? Up Against Blackout. This one is a bit different to the first three. The verses are similar to the stuff we got on the previous album, but the chorus is a bit different. To me, it also feels closer to something from the first album, at least a little bit. The song as a whole kind of feels like a mix of the previous two. It's a really good song. My Blue Heaven. This song also feels a little different to me. It still works and fits in, but it feels a little bit different. Either way, I like it a lot, and this album is just so strong. I don't know if I can say it'll get better through its runtime, but that would be so hard to do when they opened this record with 3 of their best songs. I love the final chorus and the outro a lot of My Blue Heaven. 2020 Surgery. After changing things up a little bit, this song really brings us back to the feeling of the first 3. The previous 2 are really good, but this is a step above, at least it is to me, and I adore the chorus. Spin. This song is fast and relentless. This is a fucking rager. Obviously, we all knew they could do this, but they hadn't really done this since Tell All Your Friends. And I like the solo, too. It sounds really good, especially the tone. I'm a sucker for good tone in anything, I guess. I can definitely tell why some people adore this song. It's really good. Divine Intervention. Once again, the previous song flows perfectly into this one. We open up with an acoustic guitar. Last time they did, I really liked it. And just like New American Classic, this song stays pretty slow and mellow. It works really well, but I do prefer New American. Miami. This is one I've heard before, but I actually forgot I had played it through a custom chart in the rhythm game Yarg. But again, after a couple of songs that felt different, we get back to a song that feels much more in line with the first three on the album. Also, this is so good. I love this just as much as 2020 Surgery, so just a little less than the first three. I love that solo, and this chorus shouldn't work, but it does. Great song. Also, after the re-listen louder now for this video, I constantly was singing the chorus Miami. So again, that chorus should not work, but I just couldn't stop myself from singing out Miami, so they did something right. They got my ass. But Error Operators are penultimate song, and it's another rager. This is similar in style to Spin, and it works really well. I think I prefer this to Spin, actually. I fuck with this so much. I would come back to this album at any time, but I could see this song getting a ton of spins. Which, funny enough, writing that was not... The pun there was not intentional, but... Take it, I guess. Finally, we finish Louder Now with I'll Let You Live. I know I haven't heard this song before, actually, and right away, I can tell that it's one of the band's longest songs to this point, which is true. This, once again, feels different, but I think that's pretty fitting. It makes for a cool way to end this album while still feeling like Taking Back Sunday. And that finishes up my thoughts on the re-listen of Louder Now. And as you can probably guess, what I skipped over from my initial thoughts on the record, that final line was, I love Where You Want to Be, but this, to me, is a stronger record. And firmly puts it gold tier, excellent album, above Where You Want to Be. But then Fred leaves the band, and in 2009, with Matthew Fazzi taking the place of Fred, they put out the album New Again. And right away I said, this feels like a slightly off-kilter Fred era album. And that's not a bad thing, and there's a lot to like here. Adam is clearly the lead singer on this album, and there's not really any trademark Taking Back Sunday back and forth. Matt Fazzi sings well and provides good backing vocals and harmonies, but never gets a moment to really shine vocally. It's a solid album that I like about as much as Tell Your Friends, but that album gets the edge for having more standout songs to me. This one is good and deserves to be recognized a little bit more than it is. But to go through the songs, here we go. Title track, New Again. Musically, this feels in line with the previous two albums. This is a good opener to a slightly different era of Taking Back Sunday. One thing that is very different here is that it's really only Adam. I noticed it right away. Matt is here, but only backing vocals and harmonies. Sing Into Me. This, again, feels different. I think that's going to be this album in a nutshell. It's going to feel like a slightly off-kilter Fred-era album. And that being said, I do like this song too. And that's the vibe I got throughout the whole thing, as you could tell from what I read earlier. Is I do think New Again is a slightly off-kilter Fred album. Which, like, they just spent 2 albums with Fred really kind of helping them so much creatively that makes sense, I think. But Lonely Lonely is our next song, and I actually really like this one. There's just something about the whole package that I like here. Summer, man. Okay, I'm feeling this one too. The chorus almost feels anthemic, and I like that. It just makes me want to sing along. Once again, though, this really is just Adam vocally. That's not a problem, it's just weird. Oh, next song is Swing, and I said, ooh, I really like the lead part of the intro. I honestly think this album's getting better, and I like this quite a bit. Where My Mouth Is. This song really shows such an interesting progression as one of the best third wave emo bands. I like this a lot, but I kind of get some Jimmy Eat World vibes from this, and if you told me this was a Jimmy Eat World B-side, I'd believe you. and that's not a bad thing. Then we have Cut Me Up, Jenny. Yeah, this is just more of what I've been liking from the album. Catholic Knees is good. Capital M-E, I really like the chorus, especially with the lead part behind it. Carpathia, I can hear some elements of Adam's vocals here in 152 later, and I like that quite a bit. Everything Must Go is another Taking Back Sunday closing track, of course. It starts off quiet before getting loud before the vocals come in. Listening to the first 4 Taking Back Sunday records really has shown me that they question religion, and at least mention religion quite a bit in their music. They don't shy away from it, which a lot of other bands do, and I really like this closing track. In fact, despite everything, it might be my favorite closer to so far. Yeah, it just feels like a great Taking Back Sunday song to me. And I said there's also guitar parts that made me think of Angels and Airwaves, particularly from We Don't Need to Whisper, which I think is neat. So with that being said, I initially put New Again in the silver tier, but as I progressed through the rest of their discography, listened to more, I ultimately decided to say New Again, while deserving of a little bit more recognition from fans, I do think ultimately it's a bronze tier album for me. It's a good album, but I don't think I can quite put it higher. It's definitely worth listening to. It's a very good album. I just don't think it quite reaches into great for me. But then, 2011, the classic lineup of the band from Tell All Your Friends is back. John and Sean return. We still have Adam, Eddie, and Mark, and they put out self-titled Taking Back Sunday. And I said a huge positive is the music as a whole. The instrumental for every song is very good. I really love the bass, and especially the tone and how prominent it is in the mix, which is something that I'm going to mention in every album going forward, so get used to that. And I said, yeah, this is a great album through and through. I like it a little more than New Again, and maybe a little less than Tell All Your Friends. Or maybe those two are about even. I hadn't quite figured it out. I feel like I would be more likely to come back to this album as a whole, but I'd listen to specific songs from Tell All Your Friends more. But the opening song is El Paso, which is what I've heard quite a bit of praise for over the years. And I said immediately, this is very different from anything on the first 4 albums, and I don't really know how to feel about it. I haven't heard Taking Back Sunday do anything like this, and it's not bad, but at least on the first listen, I don't love it. Maybe it'll grow on me, and it hasn't. Like, I haven't really felt the urge to come back to it very much. And again, it's not bad, it wasn't really for me, personally. But then we get into Faith, When I Let You Down. And I said, this is closer to what the band is known for, and I like this more. Best Places to Be a Mom. I like this a lot too, and I guess they just want to try something different with El Paso, is how I felt after listening to it. Sad Savior. This is another song that feels different, but it works a lot more for me. Who Are You Anyway? Once again, I feel the album is just getting better as it goes. Money, Let It Go. They're more aggressive on the song, like with El Paso, and I think it works a little bit better here. This is All Now. This is shaping up to be a very good, very strong record, and I like this one a lot too. It doesn't feel a thing like Falling. I said I really like the opening riff here. Since You're Gone is another solid song. You Got Me. One thing I'll always love about this band is the writing. This song is no exception. There's plenty of problems and stereotypes with writing and emo music, but for the most part, I feel like Taking Back Sunday manages to not fall into those problems. And then the final song, Call Me in the Morning, and I said I have heard this song actually. And I like this song a lot. It's a solid closer. I also really like how things build up in the bridge and then explode in the final chorus. This is the first song on any album from them that's really done that. Most of the time their slow, soft songs stay that way, but this one doesn't, and it's a great closing song. And with my thoughts on self-titled out of the way, ultimately you can probably figure out where I placed it. And yeah, it's going in the silver tier. I think it's a great album, but it is lower in the silver tier to me than Tell All Your Friends. But I do think I like it a little bit more than New Again. Then we have 2014's Happiness Is. And I said right away in my overall notes, based on Flicker Fade, I thought this album would be similar to the previous. Then in comes Stood a Chance, which does something different, and I like that a lot. I again have to mention how cool it is to have the bass so forward and prominent in the mix. But we open up with the preface, which is just an intro track that flows into the lead single for Happiness Is, Flicker Fade. And I said I already like this song, like I've heard it before, a strong song to kick off the album and a strong single. So far the album has some violin and other strings and effects, which is also cool. And this song also still has John and Adam both prominent vocally. And I really like everything about this song. And also, those strings and other, like the strings, violin, and other effects, I think makes sense now that this is just something that I read on the Taking Back Sunday Reddit. So take it with a grain of salt. But someone did say that apparently John did most of the writing on Happiness Is, then Adam did most of the writing on Tidal Wave that would come after. So I feel like the violin, strings, and other stuff makes sense then. But, in saying that, I liked Flicker Fade a lot. Then we have Stood a Chance, and I said this is immediately different. The way this starts actually really reminds me of something that Spanish love songs would do just a little bit later on Schmaltz, and I think that's sick. And I really dug the bass line, the guitar in the intro and the chorus. I thought was killer. It's just a pretty killer song. All the way. I said this song is a bit closer in style to Flicker, but it's still a little bit different too. Either way, I'm really feeling good about this album right now. It was really surprising me. On the next song, Beat Up Car, I said, ooh, I really like that opening riff. This song is closer to Stood a Chance, but it's also a little bit different, but it all works and I really like it. It Takes More. This song starts off slow and softer, simmering on the surface. Feels like it's just waiting to explode as it adds more into the verses. Also, one of the few times the band goes into the 5-minute range for a song. It's a great song with a long outro that morphs into something else by the band. They Don't Have Any Friends. This is just a rock song, and it's really good. I figured I'd like this album, but I didn't really know if Taking Back Sunday can make an album this strong again. And by this point, you can tell that Happiness Is was really winning me over. But we move on to Better Homes and Gardens. I don't really have much to add to this outside. I like it a lot. I just think this album is super strong. Maybe even up there with the Fred era for me. I don't think I'd put it above Louder Now, but I'd consider Where You Want to Be. Like you do, they're still finding ways to at least slightly change things up, and it works well too. We were younger then. Congrats Taking Back Sunday for putting on an album with the classic lineup that not only reaches the quality of Tell All Your Friends, but is also up there with Louder Now and Where You Want to Be. I like this song a lot. And we close out Happiness Is with Nothing at All. This starts off with an acoustic guitar and soft vocals. We get halfway through and they start building everything up, and it feels like everyone's going to come in. The music starts getting louder, starts drowning out the vocals until it ends. Good closer. And ultimately, I like Happiness Is a lot. And initially I was going to have it split the Fred albums, but after listening to the rest again, after listening to 152 again and then Tidal Wave for the first time, I ultimately decided to have Happiness Is be a little bit below Where You Want to Be in the gold tier, but I think Happiness Is still an excellent album. But we move on to the next one, which is Tidal Wave from 2016, which I was honestly the most scared to listen to. I was the most apprehensive about this one, because I've heard basically nothing. Before going into this listen, I had heard nothing good about Tidal Wave. And I'd heard a lot of people, honestly, kind of shit on the band's output post-Fred leaving. So I was a bit nervous throughout a lot of the listening here, but we'll get into Tidal Wave. And I said, I have no idea what to expect here. I remember a little bit of what the creator, the Cozy Representative, said about this album in his Taking Back Sunday Worst to Best video, but that's about it. This is their longest album in length and tracks. And a little note that I said, so far, at the time of writing, I was listening to All Excess. This album has really felt different from the rest of their catalog. I do still think it works, though, as a Taking Back Sunday album, but it is very different. But we open up with Death Wolf. And I said I like this song. This song has the classic vocal dynamic with both John and Adam. It's very rock. This is basically non-stop rock. It's a different vibe, but I think it has at least a little of their 2010s identity. Then we have the title track, Tidal Wave. And this title track opens up with some nice drumming from Mark, and then a sick-sounding riff. And honestly, this is just classic punk. This sounds like their take on 70s punk. It fucks. You can't look back. Again, I'm feeling this a lot. But the verse vocal melodies remind me of another song, and I just couldn't place it. And honestly, it just reminded me of Tom Petty. Which, thank God other people have talked about that since I listened to the album, actually today, at the time of recording. I've seen other people talk about that as well, and like, thank God, because, yeah. And I said nice solo, and I love overlapping vocals so much. But also, one thing I wanted to mention, by the way, is that so many people talk about like this heartland rock Americana type vibe from Tidal Waves, and god damn it, I really don't see it. I don't feel that at all on this album. Like, You Can't Look Back, I feel the vocal melody specifically is pretty similar to something Tom Petty would do. And then I think the next song, Fences, I can hear a little bit of like Americana type vibe, but for the most part, I really don't feel or hear that very much. But at the same time, everyone swears up and down that on the last 3 Days Grace album, Mayday, the opening sounds so similar, almost identical to And What I Become, and I'm like, no, it's not. It just, both songs start with the fucking bass, bro. They're not that similar. Whatever. Tangent aside, Fences is the next song. I like You Can't Look Back. Fences, the next song. I think this is the first song on the album that I can really hear or understand the Americana influence. Also, I'm pretty sure this song has a political message, and it would make sense with the lyrics and the time frame the album came out, and either way, it's good. All Excess flows right into the next, or Fences flows right into All Excess, and I like the song quite a bit. I felt it too. I said, again, All Excess flows right into this one, and a lot of the songs do that, by the way, so I won't keep mentioning it. But I said, I felt it too is the first one to start slower and softer. They normally have at least one song like this, but most of them stay that way with this. In the second verse, we get steady guitar strumming, which makes me think this is building to more. And I said, oh, this is definitely building up as Mark comes in after the second chorus. It builds till the vocals are basically drowned out, and then everything is quiet again. This song is also almost 5.5 minutes and does not feel its length at all. Call Come Running. This song picks things up again, and I think this is the first one that I could really see being on a previous album. And I really like the solo too. I think this album could really sneak up on me and be one that I come back to often. I said I like Holy Water a lot too. In the middle of it all, there's not much to add, but I like it. And I did want to mention that they add in the weird as hell neon pop punk, crunkcore, electronic glitchy vocal effects. Never a fan of that, but it's fine here. We don't go in there. Nice acoustic guitar with soft singing from Adam. Then about 30 seconds in, everyone comes in. I really could see this album being in constant rotation for me. I also want to shout out the band again for just the mixing on the bass. They clearly just want you to hear and notice the bass, and that's sick. Funny enough, I think with some slight reworking, this could be a song from The Killers. And I'm down for that. It won't happen, but I'm down for it. Homecoming. I said, ooh, I like the opening a lot. And that's another song I did like quite a bit. And we have our closing track, once again, I'll Find a Way to Make It What You Want. They're really setting the mood for the closer here. Then halfway through, the whole band comes in. There's a long outro, and the album pleasantly surprises me. I really dig it a lot. And you're going to be surprised because everyone says this is one of the worst albums. And yeah, I completely disagree. I loved this album. It's gold tier. Excellent. And this is the album to split up the Fred albums for me. Louder Now still, I think, the best one. But Tidal Wave, I think, is, for me, a little bit better than Where You Want to Be. Just a little bit. And that being said, we come to, at the time of recording, their last album, 152 from 2023. And ultimately, I said, this album is genuinely really good. Is it their best album? No, it's not. But it's solid as hell. Amphetamine Smiles is a good opener. Sold follows that up nicely. And The One is a nice song that evokes some of the old TBS vocal energy. Keep Going is a rager and is also one of very few explicit Taking Back Sunday songs. I Am the Only One Who Knows You is a nice soft song that's reminiscent of their 2010s output. The rest of the album keeps the momentum going and is just a good Taking Back Sunday album. And I said it finally ends on a good song in The Stranger. I don't like it as much as Louder Now, but I think I definitely felt a bit better about the re-listen here than I did for my listen of Self-Titled. But I would definitely still have it lower than Happiness Is. And at the end of the day, 152, how do I feel about it? I said it is a great album. People, again, will disagree with me, but I think it's a great album, silver tier, and I'm going to have it split Tell All Your Friends and Self-Titled. I like it a little bit more than Self-Titled. And as much as I do like and will defend 152, Tell All Your Friends is a great album, and it's got so many standout tracks that it has to be higher than 152. Though I do come back to stuff from 152 a lot. So, yeah. And ultimately, when I got to the end of all of the re-listening and listening for the first time for Taking Back Sunday for the video, I really considered bumping up New Again after it all. But I think I will keep it in bronze for a good album. I think it's just a little step lower than the rest. But it's such a good album, definitely deserves more recognition. And that is how I would rank Taking Back Sunday's discography here. I think there are 4 gold tier albums, which means for me they are excellent. There are 3 silver tier, which are great. And there's 1 album that is bronze, but it's still very good. So my gold tier albums are Louder Now, Tidal Wave, Where You Want to Be, and Happiness Is. In that order, I think Louder Now is their best album, but Tidal Wave, Happiness Is, and Where You Want to Be are all so good in my book. Silver tier, great albums. Tell Your Friends, 152, Self-Titled, and New Again is still really good, but I think it is their weakest album. But that's all I got. That was another episode of the TGC anniversary here for 2026. And yeah, that's it, I hope you enjoyed this. If you're a fan of Taking Back Sunday, let me know how you feel about the band. If you've checked out their early stuff, their later stuff, everything in between, let me know. And until next time, I'll see you later. Bye, guys.